packages that we use to make the calls work on the program. They changed the code, and we're on 3 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And so then that made Facebook unavailable today with the code change. So I guess Facebook may still be unavailable, but we are on Instagram and YouTube. And I think we can, according to my team, I think we can still take calls. So I think they figured it out, at least for that measure, and maybe tomorrow everything will be back to normal. Okay, well, welcome. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. It is another day, and the number is the same: 844-940-2774. 844-940-2774 is the number to get on the program. This is a show where you get to call in and we get to talk. And we've been having so many fun conversations lately with the callers. One of the things I love, and I want to encourage you to do this, when you're doing your browsing and going on social media and comparing your outfit to somebody else's, and the research shows that will depress you, so don't do that. I want you to go on Facebook or YouTube, or I think people do this on Instagram as well, and join in the conversations, because what's happening is there's a lot of support there among the tribe that's getting built around the program, and a lot of good advice. A lot of people have sharing their experiences. It's really, really cool. So share the program with people. If we talk about something that applies to somebody you know or love, share the program and go on some of those forums and say hi to everyone. And come say hi to me today, 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774. Okay, we always start out the program with talking a little bit about a concept. And this is one, I've talked about this before. I don't remember if it's ever at the first of the show or not. I know I did a long time ago, I did a podcast on this. By the way, we have a podcast called Boundaries.me, which is the show. You can listen to it when you're out there jogging. But here's the program that I did then, a long time ago. I'm going to repeat the thought because it is an important thought that we need to have repeated in our heads many, 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 many times. And that is something called emotional tone. Emotional tone, which basically is not about what you say, but how you say it. Okay. Now, everybody kind of knows what this is. The difference between, a defensive line football coach and somebody's telling, reading bedtime stories to a circle of preschoolers with their, milk and cookies. It's going to sound different in different contexts. I mean, obviously, God gave us the ability to sound differently, right? In different contexts and how we want to come across. Now, why is that? Well, it just so happens that here's something. I don't want to get off from another topic, but something I've always I've always laughed at with my atheist friends is is they forget, people don't think there's a designer, right? They forget that if you have subject and object, like you got me and rah, 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 right? And I'm talking and somebody is hearing, that those systems of separate separate entities had to be designed with somebody sitting above both of them and thinking about them. That'll keep you up at night. Anyway, we are designed so how we say something, there's a system in the other person to respond according to not just what we're saying, but how we are saying it. So your entire neurological wiring, the chemistry goes through your brain, the way that your brain works, the way it responds, the way it reacts, the resources that are available to it at that moment in the relationship to solve a problem, have a conversation, continue having sex, be able to eat your food, whatever you're doing, all of your functioning, being able to function at the job has a lot to do with how somebody is speaking to you, how they're speaking to you. And so when we hear it in a negative tone, okay, then the brain is going to respond usually with less performance capacity, meaning judgment, wisdom, emotional regulation, impulse control, connectedness, vulnerability, ability to be intimate, ability to think about what you're thinking and feeling. All of those things are going to get shut down if something has the wrong kind of tone that's coming at us. So, in fact, I remember it was one of those series. I want to say is, I don't know what network it's on, but they were doing this documentary. It's a long time ago, but obviously there's a lot of research on this. But they showed babies, and they showed the baby's face depending on the tones of the sounds around them. And if something would be angry or harsh or whatever, you could see the baby's face getting distressed. The whole organism is getting distressed versus something that was soft and, kind of a cooing and, just nurturing, and everything comes alive. Well, this has its reasons. If I see you out in the street and a car's coming, you don't see it, and I go, get out of the way, what are you going to do? You're going to react, right? And to get your attention. The whole system's going to dive across the street. But what if you're a neurosurgeon? And one of the other surgeons in the room starts to, what are you doing, idiot? You want that scalpel on your brain at that moment? No. So, in fact, there's research that shows. Speaking of surgeons, I was talking to mine this morning, and we were talking about this. There's research on the tone and the safety within an operating room, and they work on this actually to reduce infection rates. Now think about this. Infection rates in surgery are one of the biggest issues in healthcare, always, all around the world. Because you get an infection during surgery, that's not like, a hangnail. That's a big deal. And so they're always looking for ways to reduce infection rates. Well, a lot of infection rates actually come from pretty common just human error, right? Somebody didn't give the antibiotic at exactly the right time that the protocol calls for, or certain kinds of, scrubbing where the instruments where they were supposed to, all this kind of stuff. And so what they found was that with the surgeons who were gruff and scary and didn't make a safe environment, that nurses and others in the operating room, or the staff, the techs, who would literally see something that's not okay, wouldn't speak up because of the tone. They don't want to get barked at. It's a big deal. Big deal. Emotional tone. So when you talk to your spouse, or you talk to your significant others in a serious dating relationship, or you talk to your kids, or you talk to your boss, or you talk to your employer, or you talk to your coworker or your neighbor, or whoever it is, that the conversation is supposed to lead somewhere good, then watch that tone. The tone's a big deal. It's a big deal. A big deal. All right. Something to think about. Okay. We're going to go to the phones. Let me go the number back out. 844-940-2774. Let me check on our stats here. Hey, Albie, did it work on, did your workaround work on Facebook, or are we on Instagram and YouTube?
Yeah. Hey, Henry. So it's a long story short. We will be on Facebook tomorrow, but it's not.
But
on
we're
right
not. We're not live on Facebook now.
now. No.
Okay. So hi everybody, wherever you are on Instagram. You'll probably post it up there. I don't know if you can do that or not later. Anyway, okay. So 844-940-2774 to join in the discussion. Okay, Sean calling us from Ohio. Sean, welcome to the program.
Hi, Dr. Cloud.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm okay. Other than our technology problems, we have my team is so genius. They found out the first day we started this program. I go, what if we go live, but what if you hook all the different platforms together? And what if we add the ability to put live phone calls into that? They go, okay. And so they go figure it out by patching a bunch of software together. And one of those had a code change. And so now we've been screwed up today. So sorry we're late. Anyway, other than that, I'm great.
Good. Well, I wanted to call you, and I told your producer I had tons of questions, but I'll narrow it down to one issue I think I want to focus on right now. I'll give the question first, and then I'll give you examples if you would like them. I assume it would help. And my question would be, how can I have a good discussion with my mom about her crossing boundaries and mainly not treating me as maybe an 18-year-old stubborn child like I was back then when I'm now a 34-year-old adult with a family, wife and kids. Like she seems to sometimes stick in that mindset. She remembers me.
She's using photos instead of movies, right?
Yeah.
She's took one picture in her mind of you're 18 and she's not watching the whole movie of kind of maybe where the movie has gone since then. So, well, I'm gonna do something here. I'm gonna answer your question before I know any specifics, and then we're gonna come back and see if that works. Okay, so when you say, how can you have a good conversation with your mom and what was the way you put it? So she won't treat you like you were 18?
Yeah, basically not treat me as 18-year-old or having major assumptions about my beliefs. Yeah. That's kind of where it comes into, or maybe beliefs about not assuming things about what I'm saying or why I'm saying things.
Okay. So there's going to be, my hunch is there's going to be a couple of answers to this. One is, I'm just going to add a phrase. When you say, how can I have a good conversation with her? I'm going to rephrase it to, what's the best way that I can be in the conversation that has the greatest chance of having a good conversation with her? Now I'm saying that for two reasons. One is that's kind of the reality. We're going to focus on kind of how we have the conversation in our side, because obviously there's a variety of ways she could respond, but I'm playing around with this in this way just to illustrate a point for all of us, in that ultimately I think what's going to happen is you will be changing how you respond to her as she continues to treat you like an 18-year-old, and then treating like you're an 18-year-old is not going to work for her anymore. And so she'll just have to do something different. But let's get into some specifics. Tell me what happens. I think a lot of people, I'm so glad you called, because a lot of people have this issue. Parents get stuck. You'll always be my baby. You'll always be my, I wipe your butt. They do that. That's a real thing.
Yep. Like I said, she's not a bad mom. I have nothing. I can give a couple different examples. One of them has to do with that one, and one of them has to do with assuming things, and then kind of, when you assume things and somebody blows up about it. Like one that happened about a year ago now, I told Albie, was I have a brother and sister, just for this context, that are about 10 and 9 years younger than me, and I'm not highly close to either one of them. I'm getting closer to my sister now. We're doing a lot better, but I'm not highly close to them. But they still have, good, amiable relationships. And my sister wanted to watch my children with her boyfriend, whom I don't know either one of them very well. And my wife and I just didn't feel comfortable with that. So my mom, for some reason, was the one. I have a now 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. They were 8 and 4 at the time. or 8, yeah, 8 and 4.
Okay.
And we just weren't close enough with them. And I told for some reason, my mom was the one that asked this. She got involved into it, and she asked if they could watch them and take them out somewhere. And we just said, I'm not sure we're comfortable with that yet. We'd rather get to know them a little better before we let them just, take off with our kids personally, just to kind of go over some things. I don't just hand off my kids to any babysitter without them, knowing them a little better about how they treat kids or how they're going to talk to my kids.
Good for you.
Basically that was a text conversation. It wasn't a phone. It turned into a quick phone conversation at some point, but it was just a text. And I just said, we don't feel comfortable with that at this point. We'd rather wait before they just, have our kids on our own. And my mom interjected herself into it. Yeah, I could find the text right now. I'm not going to pull it up because I'd probably
it's okay.
Somehow.
But there's so many there's so many good things about that. I mean, even if they're Mr. Rogers, your kids don't know them, right? So part of that could be I'd rather get to know them first, feel comfortable with them and there's a lot of reasons you could have said that. That's fine. So go ahead.
Yeah, we've seen them at family gatherings. It's not like we didn't know them at all. Obviously, I know my sister. I just don't know her really well in depth. You don't get to have good in-depth conversations about certain things, at family gatherings, really, So,
right.
And she wasn't she lived 2 hours away at the time, so it was really hard to go see her all the time and get closer to her. But so my mom was the one asking that question. It wasn't actually my sister. And then my mom got upset and called me and screamed that I was trying to separate the family by not letting them watch my children.
Whoa!
And thankfully, within a week or so, a couple weeks later, like this was the first time they actually kind of resolved. Like my sister got herself involved because she was the one asking, and she understood why I didn't want her to do it. But my mom was the one who, interjected herself in it at that point, and she did apologize later on. But it seems like this pattern comes up where we're assuming things about what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, and then it blows up on me most often.
So the assumption, meaning you're trying to divide the family, that kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that. Like I said, I have another example where, like the 18-year-old one was like a couple of years ago. My grandmother had a door where we kind of take everybody's measurements as they got older. So I'm 31. My mom was like, you need to get yourself measured. I'm 31. I haven't grown in like 10 years. And she blew up at me. She got really mad at me for it and said I was being stubborn brat, basically.
For not. Wait a minute. What'd she get mad at? Because you didn't want to get measured?
I didn't want to get my height measured as a 31-year-old anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like these are kind of the little things that they come out, as comments here and there. Like they're underlying, like I'm still a stubborn, teenager still, instead of understanding. And I thought about it later. It's like it's possible my mom wasn't able to communicate better, because I thought about this much later. So maybe my mom was just trying to, help my grandmother who was elderly and aging, and have her just have some good memories of me when I was younger. Want to get myself measured again. And then I'd probably done it then, but it was the way it came about. It was the tone, like you need to get yourself measured again. Like I'm 31.
Yeah.
I'm not growing anymore. I haven't grown in 10 years.
Okay. So what have you tried? Have you addressed this with her?
A little bit. Like I said, earlier this year, that one had a better discussion, as my parents had recognized, mainly my mom, but they had recognized, these are your children. They just felt like we were separating, and then they finally listened a little better. Like it went better, but we want to have a more person discussion.
No, but I mean, have you addressed it as an issue? Have you addressed this pattern as an issue?
Not directly as a pattern. No, it was meant to happen earlier this year, but because of COVID, it separated everything off, and we haven't been able to talk in person really until recently.
Okay. Well, let's go back to your original. What's the best way to do this? One of the things that's really important, and you hear me say this a lot, probably, is that things like this are best addressed when they're not happening. That's why we pull people. We put them in an ambulance, not on the accident scene. Put them in an ambulance, take them away to an operating room where we're not trying to do this on the highway, right? Because it's a better. For a lot of reasons. So, people's emotions are different and a bunch of things. So you set aside kind of time, say, Mom, I want to be close to you, and I want us to have a good relationship. And there's a few things I want to talk about that I think could help us do better. So I would start it with the reason we're having this. It's not like, I want to talk to you because I got a problem with you. See, some people go into a conversation. It's sort of like a surgeon saying, "Hey, come on in. I want to stab you with a knife," right? Instead of, "Hey, let's fix this thing so you can play golf again." See the difference, right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do in the beginning is you're going to affirm the outcome. Always start with affirming the outcome, saying, I want us to get closer. You know, I want us to be able to have some better times together and stuff like this. So there's I've got some ideas how we can do better. I'd put it that way. And then say, but I want to start with a question. How do you see me? Do you still see me as kind of like I was when I was 18? Or do you see me as a 34-year-old married person with children? How have you made that shift? And I would try to get her, I'd try to get her narrative about what's that been like for you to move into this, you know, I'm not a kid anymore. In your what's it like now that I'm not kind of, I'm not like I was, but we're not in the same kind of relationship we were either. I would want to hear her talk about that, because that can lead into some fertile, because she's going to even give you phrases probably in that conversation where she's going to say, well, yeah, you used to, or, I would have to tell you to do things, whatever she's going to say. And and you could say, and do you know you don't have to do that anymore? And see, she's going to give you kind of probably some pieces of what you're trying to address. Then you can move from that, sort of like phase one, then move to phase two and say, well, let me tell you a little bit about my experience, because what I want to do is I want to be close to you, but sometimes there's kind of a pattern of how things happen that actually drive me the other way. And I don't want that to happen because I don't want to feel estranged from you. And then you can name them, but I want you to name them in specific ways that are actionable. In other words, sometimes we say, you're still trying to parent me, instead of, sometimes when I'm making a decision, you'll come in and tell me what to do without listening to me first of why I'm doing something. Okay? So try to make it as specific as possible. And that's the way you begin to open up the conversation, I think. You set the agenda in a positive tone of how you want the outcome to be so she can calm down. She knows we're going somewhere good. Then you can hear her side of how she got to where she is now in the current context. And then thirdly, you can talk about the way the pattern affects you and your relationship with her, where both of you want to be close to each other. So let's solve this problem together. Try those 3 steps. See what happens.
Okay.
If it doesn't work, I will call me back, because the next phase is really fun. If it doesn't work, because then she and then it does work. So we talked about this, Mom, and it happened again. So let me tell you, I wouldn't do this in the beginning unless it was really bad. If it happens again after you've talked about it and you have an agreement of mutually agreed upon expectations, right? Then when it happens again, say, you know what, we talked about this happened again. So let me tell you, just remind you, that's what I don't want. So if that happens again, what I'll do is just end the conversation, and when we can talk about it in a way that we've agreed is helpful, then we can talk again. And then you can let her know that you're not the child, you're the adult. And when she starts acting like an adult, then you guys can have an adult conversation. Until then, you might not be able to. Now that's extreme, and I don't like people to go there until there's some real reason to do it. But that happens. Where I'd like for you to get to is where you can just kind of internally roll your eyes. There she goes again. And then just give her empathy and let, oh, well, sorry you took it that way, Mom, but that's not what I was doing. And let it be a nothing. That's kind of where you might end up. Okay?
Sounds good.
Great question. Great question.
Yes,
I think
sir.
a lot of people can identify with that, and I appreciate your call. 844-940-2774. Let me reiterate that. When you go into a difficult conversation, why are we having this conversation? A lot of people go into this conversation saying, because I got a problem with you. Okay. They're like a policeman. The siren's on. Woo, 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 woo. What does a siren tell you? When you hear a siren, remember, was it Neil Young? Kind of like looking in your rearview mirror and seeing a police car. Remember when he said that? You get paranoid. When the siren goes off, I don't think many of you interpret this as, oh my gosh, there's that wonderful man or woman that's going to help me be a better driver. Oh my goodness, they're really wanting. That's so nice. And they show up to the window and you say, thank you so much for being here. I know that you want to help me. I'm all ears. Just tell me. Now, some people have learned they kind of do it that way. But that's not what you think, right? You're in a fight or flight mode or frozen, freeze. Don't come at somebody like a cop. Come at them like a partner that you're trying to get to a better place. Okay, let's do that. So start out the conversation with, you know what? I think I want to be close. I want us to have a good, close relationship, and I think there's some things we could do better on. And so let's talk about this. Who doesn't want to do better? Okay. And so then you kind of hear where they're coming from, hear their side first, listen. If you listen, I'm telling you, this will reduce a lot of stuff if you listen first. And then thirdly, let's talk about the pattern, but be specific and give them something actionable. Okay. Something they can actually do instead of some critique or judgment that research shows will actually predict divorce in married couples. When you say you're so irresponsible, as opposed to, so when the bills come in, how about we put them in the basket and then on Saturday mornings we can sit down together and figure out who's going to pay what. Let's do that. Okay, I can do that. You're so irresponsible. Well, what am I going to do with that? Okay, I'll be responsible. I don't even know what to do, right? And when we judge people in sweeping ways, that ends up in severing relationships. A lot of times, name calling, labeling, all that sort of stuff. Don't do that. Be specific. Don't even do it on the positive side. Okay, with your children, all you parents out there, a lot of the crap that's out there about parenting. Oh, you're so special. You're so wonderful. You're such a good boy. You're such a smart boy. All this kind of stuff. It doesn't help. Okay, here's what helps. You know what? When you did your homework last night and you sat down and you put all your other distractions away and you really focused, that was really, really good. When I asked you to go clean up the stuff in the den, and you told me, okay, I'll do it. Is it okay if I do this first? And we talked about it, and you said yes, and then you went in there and you did it, and that was so good the way you did that. You followed through on it, and then it was just great. See, if we're specific in our praise, then people specifically get that wired in, and that becomes specific new behaviors. If we're general about positive or negative, one of the biggest problems with those crazy self-esteem movement that took over all of, especially parenting, was it's not about skills building. And there are a lot of incompetent kids who feel like they're wonderful. Well, they're not. Their performance is not wonderful. And it's getting them in trouble. It's not good for someone to feel like I'm wonderful when I'm not performing well for the people that depend on me, because they're not experiencing me as wonderful. And so you get a big disconnect between self-esteem and reality, and then they get accused of being narcissistic when really their problem is they don't have an integrated self-image as opposed to self-esteem. They don't have an integrated self-image that has specificity around competencies. Okay, you can tell a toddler, you're such a good walker, you're such a good athlete, you're such wonderful. But if they don't ever learn to walk, the discrepancy between how they're supposed to view themselves and the actuality of what they feel underneath, which is scared, incompetent, unable, all of that kind of stuff, you undermine somebody's confidence. Sorry, I'm getting on a little bit of a rant here, but I see this all the time. Instead of building competencies, you get the question a lot of times. You get the question, how can I have more confidence about A, B, C, or D? Well, you can put a 3x5 up on your mirror and say, you are wonderful. Or you could go out there and practice A, B, C, and D and fail. And since you don't have to be wonderful and you humble yourself and realize I'm just a beginner, and you're not going to feel bad like a toddler falling down. They get right back up. You ever seen a toddler fall down saying, such a loser, I'll never be able to walk? No, because they don't have an inflated ego at that point. They're humble and they're learning. So you want to get confidence? Well, let's start with little steps and let's try and let's fail and let's get back up and let's try again and let's fail. Let's get back up. You want to be confident in A, B, C, and D? Let's go learn how to do A, B, C, and D. Now you can do A, B, C, and D. Guess what? You're pretty confident now, aren't you? Confidence comes in large part. Now, I understand there's voices in people's heads. It's a different problem. But confidence comes in large part from competency. So back to the difficult conversation. Let's work together to have competencies in the way we communicate with each other so we can be confident to address problems. Wouldn't that be a different world? If each time a couple knew they have a problem, they feel so confident to run to each other and say, hey, let's talk about this. You know, what you said last night, that it didn't feel good. No one wants to be close. And the other's going, gosh, look, yeah, let's talk about it. You know, a lot of couples are like that. They have so much confidence in each other's ability to listen and solve problems that they run to each other with problems. That's what we want. So let's start that way and let's build specificity into conflict resolution and tell each other what we could do that would help each other get closer and do better. Okay? Sorry I ranted there. But such a big deal. Okay, let's talk to Ada. Albania, international caller of the day. Ada, welcome to the program.
Hi, good to be here. I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think you are certainly our long distance caller of the day. So welcome to the show. Tell me how I can help you. And how did you find us all the way over there in Albania?
Well, I've been working for the past months how to improve my communication and my leadership skills. So I've been listening to your videos a lot.
Uh-oh.
And
I said,
so now I'm in trouble.
I hope it's helping and not hurting. So go ahead. Tell me your question. So
I've been kind of trying to organize or control how I give feedback and not be too emotional about things with my team. And it has grown me a little bit distant with them. It feels a little bit awkward. At times I feel like I'm being fake. I don't know if this is a normal part of the process.
So what would
as I work with,
what are you doing that makes you feel like you're being fake? Like I want to scream at somebody and I'm not screaming, so now I'm being fake? I don't think it's that. It's sort of like
kind of.
It's sort of it's like you're doing a good job, bless your heart, you
know. No, when something doesn't go well, I would react. Like why? I mean, why isn't this done on time? I mean, we talked about this.
Well, hold on. That's not a reaction. That's a question. Why is that a bad thing to ask somebody? Why wasn't this done? What?
Because I feel frustrated, and people see that I am frustrated. So there is some emotion in there.
Okay, so that's a different problem. That's your own internal emotional regulation. But you said the communication problem. So what do you do that makes it feel fake? To ask about why didn't we get this on time?
I'm trying, like when the thing happens, someone comes in late or the task is not delivered on time. I'm not reacting. That's the first step. And then when we have the weekly or monthly, I do not react on the spot.
You don't react. You don't say anything.
So I make sure that it's not. So when we have our weekly meeting or monthly meeting, I see it and I give a feedback that this happened again and how can we make it work. So this is kind of the path I'm trying to establish.
Okay, I would tweak that a little bit, but why is that fake? I mean, I don't understand the fake part.
I don't know. I also, I mean, when I say fake, it's like there is something inside that I feel detached. I don't feel the same connection.
Yeah, no, I get that. All right.
And I'm talking about the team of, sorry.
Okay. No, that's good because there is this isn't exactly technically right, but it is experientially kind of right. Okay. There's kind of a continuum when we feel something along the anger continuum. It starts with irritation, frustration, then we're really feeling mad, and then we get really, it goes on from there to totally, reactive, right? And so it is what happens sometimes if somebody's been kind of over on what you deemed as problematic side, that you get too reactive and too much, then you're trying to shut that down, right? You're trying to be nice, right? So so internally, probably, without knowing you better and seeing this, internally, what you've done is what psychologists would kind of call is, you've detached or split off your real feelings, and now you're kind of having to be robotic a little bit. Okay. And so you're really out of touch internally, what they call phenomenologically, emotionally, ability to feel. You kind of aren't connected to how you feel, because how you feel is like you want to scream at somebody. And so you've gone the other direction, and now it doesn't feel real to you. Now, in reality, it's probably a lot more helpful the way you're describing that you do it now, but that's excuse me. And I do want to tweak that a little bit. But here's what I would suggest. You have brought up, and you're bringing up a great point here, a great point. And that is that in our communication with people, and to be authentic, there is a step, okay? And the first step is really an internal step. And this is one of the factors that, if you ever heard the phrase emotional intelligence, EQ has these different areas that they focus on. And one of them is self-modulation, but it's also self-awareness, right? And it's awareness of others. So I love it that you're looking at this, because I would want to add in a step right there. And I would want you to get back in touch with kind of the frustration. And I would want you to sit with that a little bit and name it internally. So we're going to add a step. When you feel it, you go, okay, this is one of those moments. And I might go over to the coffee pot for a second and say, this is one of those moments, I'm really, really, really feeling frustrated here, and kind of sit with that and chew on it a little bit. Now, as you do that and we name an emotion, it actually reduces the emotion. So the frustration is going to go down, but you're going to be present and you're going to feel real. Okay? Hopefully. It's going to get you back in touch. Then, don't start screaming. Then, what I would do, here's how I would tweak it. I would sit down. If I had somebody that continually did something that I've asked, that we've talked about, I want you to remember, if you go to boundaries.me, there's a course on there on accountability. I'm pretty sure. Jess, haven't we got an accountability course? I think we do.
We do.
We do. Okay. And so there's a video on there I'd like for you to watch. And here's what it says. It says basically that because basically what you're talking about as a boss, you got to hold people accountable. So what we want to do is we want to make that a positive thing. And I would sit down with them and say, you know what, we got some patterns here, and I get frustrated, and sometimes I don't say it the best way, then I don't say it, and then I get frustrated because I'm not saying it, and then it happens again. So why don't we sit together as a team and let's come up with, and here's the phrase I want you to think about, Ada: mutually agreed upon expectations. Me and your worker, you and your worker. So can we both agree that we're going to make it clear what each of us is agreeing to do? Show up on time, get this project in by Friday at noon. Once we set that expectation and it's clear, then let's define what it means to really meet that expectation. Well, I gave it to you. Well, no, you didn't. You put half a sheet of paper on my desk. That's not. Let's define what complete actually looks like. Okay, so we know we're talking about the same thing. And then we're going to say, okay, how will we validate that we've met each other's expectations? So if I have it, okay, at noon on Friday, if I've got all that week's work that I asked for, then I'll send you an email, say, great, everybody got it in, we're done. Or if I haven't, I'm going to inspect it at the due date. And then what are we going to do then? And then we know I'm going to send you an email, give you one warning or whatever. And then what happens then? So if you set this up ahead of time and talk to them about how would you like to know that the expectation isn't going to be met, or here's how I'm going to let you know, and you agree on that, then you're not waiting all the way to the monthly meeting, and you're not carrying that frustration around all the time, and you're feeling more empowered along the way, and they're feeling more the ability to decide, do I want to perform or not?
Yeah.
That's a long answer, but you ask a very important question to a lot of people that has a lot of pieces to it. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Validating expectations.
Yeah. I'd love to hear the frustration though. Okay, so give it to me. I'm your worker. Let me have it. Give me the old data. Give me the old data. What does it sound like?
So I'll be like, why did you come late again? I mean, we've been talking about this over and over.
That's how you say it?
What do you? Yes.
That's pretty mild.
We're Mediterraneans, Dr. Cloud. We get offended very easily. We're Mediterraneans. We get offended very easily.
I don't know. I thought a lot of Mediterraneans are pretty expressive also. Right?
We are expressive, but look, I'm their friend. Most of them have worked for me for over 5 years, and we go out a lot, and we share life together.
Well,
And
that's sorry. I'm trying to.
it's probably about
I'm listening.
expectations.
Well, if you're friends also, then you can really talk about this. Say, how do you want me to get feedback? I'm getting frustrated, dude. We're friends. We're friends who can say that. But it'd be good to have those conversations. Anyway, try that. Get back in touch with your feelings. Have a moment. Regulate them. May want to talk to another manager. I want to scream at them. Help me not scream at them. But then go in and feel. And there's nothing wrong with you saying, this is really getting frustrating to me. And that's going to have you more in touch as well. Okay. Got to get to some other callers. Thank you for being our longest
Thanks a lot.
distance.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you too.
Thank
you for all the way from Albania. That is the long distance caller of the day. Okay. So let's go to Tyler, and who's calling us from North Carolina. Tyler, welcome to the program.
Hey, Dr. Cloud, how you doing?
I'm very well, Tyler. How are you?
I am well. Yeah, thanks for letting me on. I have a couple questions, but one main one. Should I just start?
Go ahead.
All right.
I can't guarantee that I'll be helpful, but I can try. That's kind of a lame. That's sort of a lame promise. I'll try. Okay. I will be helpful, Tyler. Somehow I will be helpful. That's better.
Here we go. Well, yeah, I'd love to talk about pornography. I have the desire for marriage. Never been married.
How old are you?
Before. 28.
28. I've dated before. I've dated before.
Oh, yeah.
You dated before what? You've dated before what? Before you gave it up?
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. But I would say that's
how long. Wait a minute. I want to get the dating history. So, what do you mean you dated? What does it look like? People usually kind of get interested in that in kind of mid-teenage years. So, when did you hop on the dating train or not? And what's your dating history?
Dated one girl for 2 years in high school. Dated another individuals for 2 years during college, and maybe a couple 1 month in between those. Since I've been in the, I guess, career mindset, I've never had I'd say a strong relationship.
Okay, so
maybe about
it sounds like you kind of quit at about 24 or so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been almost 3 years since I've gone on more than 1 or 2 dates with an individual. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to point out something. Your dating life seems to be one person at a time for some length of time, right?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, so we're looking at, let's just call that 10 years almost. Well, not 10 years. Let's call it 8 years from when people kind of usually sort of do some sort of what we could mildly call dating at 15 or 16 years old, all the way to 24. We're talking about a total of 4 people.
Yeah.
Right?
About 5.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, I'm not scolding you here. I'm going to point out why that can explain some stuff so you can begin to think about it in a different way. But go ahead. So now so I interrupted you. You said I've dated before. So now finish that sentence and keep going.
Yeah, now that we have, yes. Yeah, I have the desire to date and eventually get married. There's an aspect of, yeah, but there's an element in my mind that don't know where it came from, but there is a hesitation of, I don't even date. I'm not even, the idea of worthy of a date. If I've just got this, not past baggage, but reoccurring and chosen, like habitual habit of pornography. So I just
Wait a
know,
minute. You've got an idea in your head that you're not worthy?
From a female's perspective, absolutely. Why would they want a man with, you know, what I've said? Yeah.
Why would they want a man with what? That's used pornography?
With an addiction to pornography. Yeah.
Well, that's probably not why they would want to go out with you. If that's the only thing you put on your if that's the only thing you put on your profile, right? Hi, I'm Tyler. I'm addicted to porn. Here's my number. No, that's you're probably right, and that's not why they would want to go out with you. But look what's happened to your entire self-image. I mean, I've been talking to you for what, a few minutes here, and you're bright, you're interactive, you're funny, you have the ability to look at yourself. You know, I can name, I don't know, 6 or 8 things that would be attractive to women. But I'm a little worried about this internal judgment of yourself that's naturally going to end up in a lot of shame and bad feelings, which does not fuel us to go towards somebody for a connection. It's going to cause you to go away. Okay. And when you go away and you unplug from human relationship, you still have a desire for connection. You have a desire for sexuality. You have a desire for intimacy. But now you've moved away from humans. So what do we have to do? We have to create that connection in fantasy without the risk. And that's what pornography does. So you just found a non-effective way to solve your problem of, you know, wanting to connect with women.
Based on what you said, I have another question. What do you tell someone with either poor self-efficacy, or you were just talking about like a lack of competency?
Yeah.
I think that's what it stems from. As I just go straight to the, you know, as I describe myself, hey, my name's Tyler, this is my problem, not 6 or 8 great things. But there's
right.
So what about I don't know, what's your steering or direction on
Tyler, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living?
I'm in construction development.
Construction development, like you build things?
No, I manage, essentially manage the construction of REITs who are add to their portfolio.
You manage the construction for REITs that are adding a commercial, office, residential. Commercial. What is it? Commercial.
Yeah, commercial. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed that. I was listening to you there for a second. I thought, gosh, you ought to be a psychologist. Talking about self-efficacy and how do you got a lot of stuff, good stuff going on in that brain of yours. All right. But I think you've probably hit on something that somewhere along the line, you know, real human interaction, specifically in this sphere. Obviously, you do it well in your work. But specifically, when you make yourself vulnerable in trying to establish some kind of a connection, you know, with the woman in a dating relationship, there's fears. There's feeling like you're not competent, not able. You've said it a couple times. Why would she want you? So there's 2 things wrong with that. One is there's a self-image problem where you see yourself as undesirable, but there's also an other image problem, the image that you have of women, that they aren't looking for someone like me. Okay. So now.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have a picture of women that somehow they're superior, looking down at you, or they have this list of criteria that they're going to judge you by, that they're not going to want you, and there's something going on with your view of women that make them much scarier than they actually are. Now,
I guess this was not.
What?
I wasn't going to bring up suicide. Wasn't a part of the first equation, but I would like to, like, in this conversation, I do know there's a correlation between those two things. I've noticed
between what?
Just pornography and suicide and low self-esteem. That's not something in my research or just looking up on what research has said about.
Okay, go ahead. But why do you bring it up? Do you have a history of suicidality or anything?
No thoughts. Here and there, and I know that pornography has a correlation to me thinking that, and those, like I said, just poor view of self, and
and the isolation. It's isolating you.
Yeah.
Are you currently feeling suicidal?
No,
you're okay. Are you getting? Go ahead.
No, I just said thankfully no.
Okay. Are you getting any help? Any deep kind of help with a really, really good therapist or counselor?
No, I have one experience with that. That was actually in university, and that was a university counseling center, and I found it to be a little bit of a backtrack, actually, just not helpful.
Yeah.
I'm
okay.
And
you're a what?
I'm a Christian, and I would say the counselor I was talking to in university was not a person of any faith. Yeah. And I think that just didn't really match. I don't know if he saw exactly where I was coming from.
Okay. All right. Tyler, I'm going to give you, I'm going to just give you a handful of suggestions here. Okay. Because
sure.
we're up against the clock. But the first thing I want to do is I really want you to hear me on this. Okay. I want to normalize your experience that you feel so bad about. Okay. Now, here's what I mean.
Okay.
That you are talking about a very, very normal progression. And that is the progression of every human has the need to connect, okay, and has experienced to some degree. Now you got people on one end of the spectrum that's way so much pain, but every human somewhere on that continuum has experienced difficulties in what you call efficacy in connecting with other people. They've had maybe an abusive parent or a critical parent or abandonment or abuse, or they had zits and people made fun of them, or they got bullied, or they felt like they weren't smart enough, or they weren't an athlete and you had to be an athlete and I'm a nerd, or they weren't a nerd and I was an athlete, whatever it was. And so everybody has disruptions in this, right? Now, some people along the way have a community or a relationship to join, especially in these critical peer group years when all this dating stuff starts, like in adolescence. They have that BFF or that peer group that goes with them through all of that. And they're connecting with them and they're building skills, or they find a therapist or they find a group or whatever. And they kind of get back into, they sort of overcome that because they have help. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't have help doing it. And the only way to go from there is isolation, but you can't live with the isolation. So then, and here's what I want you to hear is normal. Okay. Then they have to find some way to medicate themselves, some way to feel better. Some people do it with a substance. Some people do it with pornography. Some people do it with actually acting out in impulsive sexuality. Some people do it by trying to pursue achievement and making more money, and that'll make them feel good. Some people do it by religious performance. But what they're trying to do is cure this basic problem that all of us humans have of feeling disconnected, and in our disconnectedness, feeling ashamed and feeling not good enough about something and feeling bad about something. Now, in this arena, so you don't do this in your work, but in this arena, that's what's happened. And you got this isolated part of you that nobody knows. And of course, it gets despairing at times. So, how do we fix that? Well, we reverse the process. I'm sorry you had a bad experience in counseling. That happens. Okay. Sometimes people have 2 or 3, 4 of them before they find a good one. It doesn't take away the need that I want you to really, really find 2 things. I want you to find a group that focuses on this. And I'm going to give you a suggestion. Okay. Can you still there?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Call or go on the web, go to newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. They have a program called Every Man's Battle.
Okay.
Where you're going to find a ton of help and probably support online, a bunch of other stuff, but it's going to bring you out of that isolation. Or you could find another good therapist by talking to somebody who makes a lot of referrals and knows who the good ones are. But I want you to find a group, some kind of sexual addiction group. You're going to find out you're not weird. You're as normal as the next guy who struggles with this. But then also I want you to begin to get with a good therapist and get to these pictures of how did I become afraid? How did I start to fear rejection? Who's in my head and work through all of that stuff as well. Because you have, Tyler, just talking to you, you have so many abilities to connect and communicate that it's just going to be a matter of integrating a lot of these into this part of your life. And that's what I would encourage you to do. And if you ever feel suicidal, then let somebody know and get immediate help. Okay. Because that can happen in isolation. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. I'll definitely your life and dive into how I started to fear rejection. Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
and go to boundaries.me. I've got a ton of stuff on all of this, from addictions to, people picking, to building community, to everything that's on there. Boundaries.me. Okay, Tyler, thank you for your call.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about this program, and I'll end with this. Can't believe time's gone again. How does that happen, guys? Is that the human struggle, pretty common. Okay, just people's symptoms look the same. People's symptoms look different, but the underlying issues are the same. There's a handful of them. And you know what? There's answers. I sat through some open heart surgeries with a friend of mine who's a heart surgeon, and he was doing bypasses, and we filmed it for an episode of Leadership University. And then his partner was there, and he was doing an operation on a young woman who had a hole in her heart on the side. And so he said, hey, go next door in the other operating room and watch this one. So I go down and I sit with his partner. And so the patient is lying on the table like this, right? And so we're looking through her rib cage. She's lying like this, and the surgeon is sitting there in a chair, actually, and he's opened up her rib cage, and he's got her whole body open, and the heart's sitting there, boom, 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 boom. And here's what he said to me. He said, "You know what I love about my work?" I said, "What?" He said, "Every day when I come to the office, it's exactly the same. It looks exactly the same." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Look at that heart. Every one of them's exactly the same. And if something's wrong, we can see it because we know what it's supposed to look like. There's a design to this that's so incredible. and we can know what it's supposed to look like, and we know what's wrong is where it's off because it's not supposed to look like that. I thought, you know what? That's like my work. And that's what I want Tyler and everybody else to hear is that the human heart, it looks the same in everybody. Has needs for connection, has needs to be free, has needs to be accepted, has needs to be competent, has needs to care and work through issues. We're all the same, folks. And the closer we can get and come out of those shadows, like Genesis says, we put the fig leaf on and hide because we're ashamed. So do what I suggested Tyler do. Connect with some people who understand you. And they understand because they're not judging you. They understand because they've owned their own issues as well. That's where you find acceptance, from humble, loving people. And that's what I love about you guys on the platforms of Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. You come together like that, and every day, every single day, I love it. Many of you are getting better because you're starting to talk. So thanks for talking to me. Got to hop off and see you tomorrow. I think tomorrow, what do we got? Tomorrow we've got our regular time. Yeah, we do. Regular time tomorrow. Okay. A couple of announcements. We have our depression workshop coming up. If you struggle with depression, go to boundaries.me /depression. Boundaries.me /depression. You can sign up for that. It's coming up on February 17th. And if you can't see it live, you can, once you sign up for the live event, you can stream it afterwards. And also everybody else, everything we talk about here on this program, the principles, the context, there's so much on boundaries.me. Go to that platform. There's over 80 courses and literally hundreds of little videos with instructions and how to handle this situation and all this kind of stuff. Go check it out. Boundaries.me. Join that family. All righty. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay.